Hello to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5am Club. As you can see, I'm dressed in red. Christmas is just round the corner. It's Sunday afternoon. It's been a quiet day. I've spent the day at home today because we've had a few challenges here with the weather and with COVID-19. So we're just biding our time and just waiting to get through this week and hopefully get back on the good path again. But I'm sure it'll all work itself out. So once again, thank you for joining me on Jim's 5am Club. I'm at home in the front yard. It's late in the day, but I thought I'd just pump out one more 5am Club just to get the tally clicking along, because the end of the year is coming rapidly, and I just want to get as many out of the way as possible so that I kick off the new year with most of my goal intact. So let's do a book summary today. It's a wonderful book, an awesome book, and it's a book entitled Predictably Irrational. Predictably Irrational. And it's written by Dan Ariely. Dan Ariely. And it's a great book. It's a great book with a number of awesome insights. So we'll just try and step through this as best we can. But it's the sort of stuff that I love. I thrive. I've got to tell you, I thrive on this stuff. I love this stuff. I love observing humans. I love human behavior, and this sort of stuff is lobster to me. I just love it. So the book basically kicks off, or the author kicks off by suggesting that most people don't know what they want unless they see it in context. You know, most of us go through our lives not knowing what we want. I remember when I was a school student at school, and people would ask me, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do when you grow up? You know, and I said to myself, I don't bloody know. I really don't know. You know, how do you know? How do you know what you want? How do you really know what you want? It's just bloody hard, especially when you're a young bloke or a young girl and you're at school. You know, your parents had businesses, your relatives had businesses. Every now and then you'd go to the doctor. You know, you wouldn't know what an accountant did, you know, because you wouldn't have to do taxes. You wouldn't understand what accountants did or what lawyers did, unless what you saw on the TV. You knew what a policeman did. You knew what a plumber would do, an electrician. But how do you know what you want to do? But and how do you know what you really want? You know, is the bottom line. You know, we meet lots of women in our lives. We make lots of friends in our lives. But it's only when you look at them in relation to somebody else, or in relation to yourself, or when you compare and contrast them to your parents, and your relatives, that you really understand where they sit in the overall puzzle. So the author talks about the fact that we make decisions. Most of the decisions we make, most of the choices that we make, are based on relative advantage. So we only compare things. We only make decisions to the things that we can compare them to. There are things out there that we just don't know, you know, and you can't compare what you have to something that you don't even know exists. So in our lives, we'll compare things, you know, to the things we know, to the things the people we know, to the behaviours that we're aware of, and we put it into context in that respect. And they made an interesting point that in a restaurant, they'll often have a very, very expensive bottle of wine or a very, very expensive entree on the menu. And the objective of that entree, of that expensive item, is not to sell it. They say that restaurants make a lot of money, not by selling those expensive items, but because people make their decisions and do comparisons instead of buying the most expensive thing, which seems to be a bit rich, a bit out there, they'll go and pick the second most expensive thing, which is still tremendously profitable. So they'll end up going and spending a lot more than what they would have spent, because in relative terms, they think they're getting value. So just think about it. There's a game out there, and we're being played. So we make choices based on relative advantage, is the point that the author is making. And they talk about here that the more you have, the more you want. We know that. We're never satisfied with anything we have. It doesn't matter how good, all the things we have, all the things that we're surrounded with. We always want more, we want different, which I guess causes most people to have problems in their lives, because they chase too many things, which get them messed up and caught up. So then the author talks about a concept called herding. And he said that in our minds, we make up our minds and decide whether or not something is good and desirable based on a herding instinct. So if other people buy certain things, for example, I guess when my daughters were young, Louis Vuitton, a particular Louis Vuitton handbag was really, really cool, and you'd only be cool if you had that particular handbag, which meant that because other people went and bought it and walked around with the Louis Vuitton handbag, then that herding behaviour, that indicator, was a strong impulse for other people to want to get it, to be part of the herd. Until it got to the point where the Greeks used to say, "Akome ki kochi Maria," had the bag as well. So everybody had that Louis Vuitton bag. And I guess it happens with cars, it happens with postcodes, it happens with everything. And we also have a thing called self-herding, where we'll make decisions and choices based on previous decisions and choices that we made that made us feel good. So then the author goes on to say something which is, I think, the most important thing they say in this book, and that's that we should all question and check our irrational behaviours, because we make a lot of irrational behaviours, and those behaviours need to be checked, and as the author says, you need to ask yourself, where did this behaviour come from? How did it start? I don't know what irrational behaviours we have, but I guess smoking could be an irrational behaviour. It's bad for you. It's expensive. It's not going to bring you joy and happiness in the long term. And yet people are happy to spend $20,000 a year, smoke, knowing that it's not ideal for them. So you need to ask yourself the question, as what the author says, where did this begin? How did it start? And to then ask yourself, does this irrational behaviour give me as much pleasure as what I thought it would? You need to ask yourself, are you getting pleasure from doing what you're doing? And it's an important question. It's an important question to have, because if it's not giving you the pleasure that you thought that you were going to get from this particular irrational behaviour, then you need to change it. Simple as that. So the theme of this book is to question your irrational behaviours. And then the author says something else which I never quite understood before or considered before, but now I understand it, and it's very, very powerful. And they say that you must be very, very careful. You must be very, very careful about the first decision you make in a day, or the first decisions you make on a certain path in your life, because the first decision you make has a massive impact. You don't quite realize that each decision, or more importantly, the first decision you make in a particular path, because remember, a decision is something where you cut off from. So when you're basically deciding, you're cutting off, you're making a choice between two or more things. And if it's two things, you're saying, well, I'm not going to do one, I'm going to do this one here. So that first decision that you make, the author is saying, is that decision is going to impact all the other decisions that you make after that. That decision will percolate and influence every other decision that you make. So it's important to get that first decision right. It's really powerful. This is really bloody powerful, because each decision has first, second, and third level consequences that we can't really see up front. But with time, you realize, 10 years down the track, you'll say, shit, why did I make that decision? Why did I do what I did? Because all of a sudden you see the impact that it's had on your life. It could be a great impact, by the way. So I'm not saying that first decision will create a mess in your life. It could, but the decision will impact all the other decisions that you make and will dramatically impact your life as time goes on, because the compounding effect of each decision, especially that first decision, will then attract and attach other decisions and other consequences to it. So you need to be very, very mindful of that first decision, because it has long and lasting effects on your life. And in order to make the right decision, in order to assess and make the right decision, what the author says here is that you need to push yourself into your future, and look at yourself 5 years from now, and try and experience and understand the emotional state that you will be in looking back at the other end of the experience. So it needs a bit of forethought. It needs a bit of propelling yourself into your future and asking yourself, are all these donuts that I'm eating on a daily basis, are they going to give me the body shape, the body image that I want in a year's time or 2 years' time, or are they going to have other impacts? And so that's a really important theme from the book, and something which is a real awesome takeaway and very actionable. Actionable. That's what we want. Actionable sort of ideas. Then the author talks about a thing called the Endowment Effect, and they say that the more we invest in something, the more ownership we take in something, then the more committed we are to it. So be careful what you take ownership of, because especially political ideas, friendships, all those things, the more you commit to it, the more ownership you seem to acquire, and it's more mental ownership. And once you get to a certain point, a certain threshold, then you get to a point where you just want to keep on investing in it, even though it's costing you, even though it's bad for you, even though it's stuffing up your life and messing up your life and messing up everything around you. A lot of people don't want to cut their losses, but being a share trader, I'm always asking my broker, and we're always talking about cutting our losses and then moving our money into another trade to stem the flow, to stem the losses, but also to give us an opportunity to make some money in the short term. Because sometimes, if you're too invested in something, then you're hoping, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, and it gets to a point where you've lost so much that you can't afford to then cut away from it. So be wary and be on the ball, and even though you've got ownership, learn to cut your losses where you can. And then the author here talks about a thing that people always do: apply a cost-benefit analysis. A cost-benefit analysis to honesty and dishonesty. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. My mother always told me, she said, son, there's no degrees of honesty and dishonesty. Either it's honest or it's dishonest. And if you need to rationalize it to make it right for you, then it's probably dishonest. So, we need to understand, we need to have our values, we need to have our values in place and to stick by them, and not to sit there and try and rationalize and do a cost-benefit analysis as to whether or not to be honest or dishonest. Be a man, be a woman, whatever you want to be, man up or woman up, and just be honest. Be honest and forget about the cost-benefit analysis, because at the end of the day, you're going to be looking back at yourself, you're going to be looking in the mirror and say, I don't recognize that person, I don't like that person in the mirror because they're dishonest. It's a hard one. It shouldn't be a hard one. Our parents have taught us right from wrong. Learn to do the right thing wherever you can, but never ever, according to what this author is saying, is use the cost-benefit analysis to support doing something which is wrong. You can't live with yourself. You'll have it on your conscience, and it'll be eating away at you for forever and a day, and you just don't want to live like that. Well, if you do want to live like that, you won't like yourself in years to come, and it will impact everything you do, because deep down in your subconscious, it'll be eating away at you, and you'll be making more and more worse decisions over time, because once you've tainted yourself, then there is no shame, and you'll just continue along that path, I guess is the gist from this book. So let's finish off. There's just a couple of points here in summary. What the author was saying is that many of our behaviours are misguided. Many of our behaviours are irrational. So we just need to question those repeated behaviours and do the right thing wherever we can, and don't use cost-benefit analysis to be honest or dishonest. Honesty is the best policy. At least that way you don't have to sit and think, what did I say, and try and cover yourself, because it's just a hell. It's just a hell to be in a relationship or in a world where you're always got to be constantly lying to each other just to get by. And the author then finishes off by saying that many of our behaviours are not random. Now, a lot of the things that we do is not done randomly. We just don't get up and do something and be random. All of our behaviours, according to the author, even if they're irrational, even if they're rational or rational, doesn't matter. All of our behaviours are both systematic and predictable. And that's why people are easy to read. You can read people like a book. Once you understand that their behaviours are systematic and predictable, because we as humans are habitual in nature. We do the same things over and over again. Once you press a person, once you press a button, you'll have the same response. When you press 2 or 3 buttons, you'll get a different response, but it's a predictable response. So learn to be able to read not only yourself, but the people around you. It's a wonderful thing. I love it. I absolutely love it. And to question our repeated behaviours, and most importantly, that first decision will impact every other decision that comes in your life. So learn to say no, and assess your decisions, and push yourself into the future, and look back and ask yourself, what sort of emotional state will I be looking back in 5 years' time after I make this particular decision, and also suffer or enjoy the first, second and third level consequences from this decision. So that first decision is the key. And that's about it. So thank you very much for joining me on Jim's 5 a.m. Club. I'm coming to you from my front yard here at home on this beautiful Sunday. It was overcast, drizzled a bit here up where I am, but because of COVID-19 and the challenges that we have, we stayed in today, and look forward to Christmas. Look forward to having some time off from work and some time with family and friends, and to continue along our merry way, and then to look back over 2020 and hopefully identify some good that came out of this year, as well as understand that we did have some challenges, but we all got through those challenges. Just remember, whatever challenges we faced in this year, we got over them. Nothing conquered us this year, and nothing will ever conquer us. So thank you very much for joining me. Let's finish off with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I am well, and I feel absolutely great. To my friends and family, stay connected, stay relevant, stay reasonable, and most importantly, let's make the most of this week ahead and see where it leads us. I'll come to you again tomorrow at 5 a.m. from another location with another message, where we'll have some empowering sort of messages to share and to help us get through the morning, get through the day, and to have a shared experience. So thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to chatting to you again. And it's a beautiful evening. Let me just show you what the sky looks like. So some beautiful cloud formations just to finish off the day. And thank you once again for joining me. Taleme, Yasas, Pilaki from Jim's 5 a.m. Club, and I'll see you tomorrow. Prototheos. Ciao. Yeah. Bye.